This tape.
When I learned at World School.
This tape was right. So it looks like old world languages style.
Maybe 5.
Just
Just I have to buy. I think so. But I had no time to. I have to go. Very difficult. What's that opinion?
Oh no. Yeah, very easy opinion.
Expression.
Understanding an Enigma. Karl von Wolfram, a Dutch journalist who has lived in Japan since 1962, is the author of The Enigma, Japanese Power, one of the most controversial books ever written about the country. Van Wolfram argues that there is no central authority in Japan. Rather, it is a society governed primarily by informal relationships between groups, largely unaccountable, within the Japanese business and political establishment. He spoke recently with Newsweek's Asia Economics editor, Bill Powell. Excerpts.
Enigma means mystery. I had before. Please. Teach again.
I'm too tired. Mystery. Not mystery, but many sides, which are hard to understand because many aspects.
Yes. Wolfram argued that there is no central authority in Japan.
In his book, he doesn't think there is a central authority. Which can decide.
Rather, it is a society governed primarily by informal relationships between groups, largely unaccountable within the Japanese business and the political establishment.
So he thinks that the society is not controlled by some central authority, but by many informal group relationships, especially between business and some politicians. Okay. Your book, to say the least, has set off a heated debate among Japan scholars. Why do you think that it's touched such a raw nerve? I've at least tried to answer some questions that some people, maybe quite a number of people, have had concerning Japan. How do you explain it? It's fairly clear that the Japanese economy does not behave in a way that the economic textbooks say it ought to behave. When a currency nearly doubles, you expect that a very dramatic reversal of trade flows. Well, that hasn't happened. There are many other things involved. The book came at a time when those questions were becoming more urgent. Why more urgent? It's not so much Japan's large trade surplus themselves. The urgency comes from bafflement, from the genuine concern that other countries are dealing with something that seems to be immune to understanding.
To say the least.
At least.
Has set off a heated debate among Japan scholars.
So there is the book is very controversial.
So why do you think it touched such a low nerve?
So why do you think it's so controversial?
I'll at least try to answer some questions that some people, maybe quite a number of people, have concern with Japan.
So he says that he has been trying to answer questions that many people have about Japan.
The Japanese economy does not behave in a way that the economic textbooks say it ought to behave.
So he says that if you look at economic theory, the way that the Japanese economy is managed does not match typical economic theory.
Typical economic theory? When the currency nearly doubled, you expect a very dramatic reversal of trade flows.
So when you double the value of money, yen, then you expect that that will have some impact on export-import results. So in other words, since Japan's since Endaka, actually there hasn't been much change as anticipated in the number of imports entering Japan or exports leaving Japan. That should have made Japanese products more expensive overseas and the foreign products cheaper in Japan. That is what Endaka should have done. But he says it doesn't do that. Why? His why is he thinks he knows why. So he criticizes. That hasn't happened.
There are many other things involved. Only, not only this.
Yes.
Another.
Yeah, according to him.
According to him. It's not so much Japan's large trade surpluses themselves.
So he says there are many questions asked about Japan. And one of the questions is about the trade surplus, but he says that's not the principal question. Other questions are becoming more important.
Urgency comes from bafflement, from genuine concern that other countries are dealing with something that seems to be immune to understanding.
So he says that the crisis, the problem, is that many people overseas are confused about Japan. And they seem worried that they are dealing with a country, Japan, which appears to be something no one can understand.
No one can understand.
Immune to understand. And that creates urgency. don't know about his book? Last year, published at the time of so-called revisionism. Mr. Van Wolfram book published, and Mr. Fallows, James Fallows, containing Japan. His book is often criticized. Opposite sides. Morita-san recently, the show,
yes.
doesn't want to be compared to Ishihara.
Yes.
He said he's sorry to publish the book with Ishihara.
Yes.
I heard, I don't know it's true, I heard he thinks a book is important, but he doesn't like his idea linked so closely to Mr. Ishihara's.
Seems like so close appear.
But you read the book, so Mr. Morita wasn't so strong.
Yes.
Very
Ishihara's
practical.
opinion, very strong. Surprise? A little radical.
The Morita was more practical, so.
Yes.
But because they wrote the book,
two
names,
two
so
names,
they are
yes.
linked together.
Yes.
Not good PR for him and his company, I think.
I think so.
Let's see.
Second author, one orphan, is author or another job.
He's a journalist.
Journalist.
Dutch journalist
Yes,
himself.
journalist.
And he wrote this book, Enigma, A Japanese Power. Kinokama Gosen, hardback.
In English.
No,
translation.
maybe Japanese translation, I don't know.
You already finished?
Mada
Summary.
もうすぐ、はいはい。
すごい。そう。
出てから直接意見を言って。You and others among the so-called revisionists insist that Japan just doesn't operate the way Westerners expect societies to operate. There seems to be a lot of resistance to that, both inside Japan and outside. Why?
Doesn't operate the way Westerners expect society to operate. The Western manner different from Western manner.
Yeah, but probably main point is economically. Revisionist is okay.
Revisionist. Abdurrahman, please.
Outright. Revisionists are the group of people recently in the West who have a new idea about Japan. A little critical. Previous ideas of scholars and people understand Japan and give Japan time or something. Mr. Van Wolfram, Mr. Fallows, and other people are so-called revisionists. They say Japan has different rules than America or England, and we have to have a cold understanding about that. I saw one TV program. Same game, different rules. But that TV program, quite interesting. It's a video from America, PBS, 1 hour program. They compared baseball and the economics. Baseball played in America, baseball played in Japan. Same game, but different rule. Way of doing is quite different. Interviewed many American sports players in Japan who comes here to show for our Daiei Hawks to come. The Gaijin player complains. Strange way to play baseball. This is not the way I learned baseball. Something like that. And interview Japanese. And to then change the situation to economics. They're trying to show that societies have different idea about that kind of criticism growing. Yeah.
What about what about the government over society? Society is operate
Many ways. Copyright law, patent law. They interviewed some American businessmen in Tokyo who worked in Tokyo 15 or 20 years and has a company. And they made some product. And they developed new technique. But they're a very small company. And Mitsubishi took that idea and improved the idea. Big company improved the idea and produced similar product. And it took 70% market share.
The patent or Mitsubishi?
Yes. Yeah. And the government, that small company complained to government and said, no, patent law in Japan is slightly different than in America. And that kind of idea. Of course, it from American side looks unfair. Japanese side says, no, patent law is different in this country. But American side says it means the big company swallows small companies' product or something. That kind of comparison.
In Japan, America and European and England, the same rule.
Well, the Japanese business Mitsubishi representative says, yes, American patent law is much stricter, much more long-term. Patent is protected many more years than in Japan. But this is Japan, he said. You have your law, we have our law. Something like that. Reasonable, but from a businessman's point of view, unfair, they say. You play American rule in America, which is good for you, but in Japan, the rule protects you, he says. So there. That kind of criticism growing more and more. We can see newspaper. So perception is getting worse and worse, maybe. The both sides becoming emotional. So Kaifun and Bush meeting decided nothing.
Nothing, yes.
Only they turn up to a temperature. Heat. The so-called revisionist contentions have been distorted. They don't say that the Japanese are so different that they should be treated differently. I don't say that. The Japanese are like anybody else. All I say is that they are governed differently. I am emphatic about this. This is not a matter of culture, it's a political matter. The political system is different. Japanese economic might is politically driven. You have informal political relationships among clusters of power holders, and it is those informal relationships and informal transactions among them that are the substance of Japanese political life. They enable a type of control over economic processes that does not exist in either the United States or Europe, or certainly not to the extent to which it exists here.
The so-called revisionist contentions have been destroyed.
So he claims that the criticisms by himself and other people have been confused on purpose.
Japan is unique, not unique. The Japanese are like anybody else. Japanese also same.
He thinks.
Yes, he thinks.
Just their government way is different.
Yes. Japanese economic mind is politically driven.
So the economic power of Japan is driven by politics.
Right. You have informal political relationships among clusters of power holders.
In Japan, there are many informal political relationships around certain groups. You mean Tabatsu?
Power holders.
Abe. Kirishita.
The old person.
Right, that way, yes.
They enable a type of control over economic processes that does not exist in either the United States or Europe, or certainly not to the extent to which it exists here.
So those groups, that system, allow a kind of political control over economics that we don't see in America or Europe, or if we see it, not as extensive as in Japan.
Okay. Means Japan is behind
Japan Incorporated,
incorporated.
or Japan Inc. Government control of business. More than in other countries. You argue that the Japanese establishment doesn't mind criticism, but that it dislikes analysis. What does that mean?
That the Japanese establishment doesn't mind criticism, but that it dislikes analysis. Doesn't mind criticism.
Doesn't care.
But that it dislikes analysis, but mind.
Yes.
嫌い。Japanese mind that analysis.
Doesn't like to be analyzed.
Yes.
I don't know. His question, what does it mean? We have to read the answer. I can't answer without reading the answer. Your mind is too quick. Politicians here are ritualistically criticized for doing what they are fully expected to do, like raising millions of dollars for campaigns. But there is insufficient scrutiny of the political system. You see what happens when you try to seriously analyze it. You are immediately faced with what seems to be a concerted campaign to exercise what you are doing. And it's perfectly understandable. People who feel threatened by this type of analysis, of course, respond to it. Now, any scholar or any journalist who wants to tackle this in a serious way is intimidated. He is strongly discouraged from speaking his mind because he will be branded as, if not a Japan basher, then as an overly critical, one-sided.
For instance, here, ritualistically criticized for doing what they are fully expected to do.
So the politicians are criticized very strongly for doing exactly what everyone expects them to do, which is raise much money. So then they raise much money for their campaign, and everyone criticizes them. But also every Japanese expects them to do that.
It is insufficient scrutiny of political system.
Yeah. So he says, on one hand, they make much money, and everyone says, yes, we expect them to do that. But on the other hand, everyone criticizes that. So he says it's kind of, there is not deep scrutiny of the way politics works. Kind of game. And you see what happens when you try to seriously analyze it. So when you do analyze deeply or scrutinize deeply, you are criticized. You immediately face a campaign to stop what you were doing. Exercise.
To stop.
Yeah. And that's understandable because the people who are threatened by this analyst, the politicians, want to stop that analysis. But if any scholar or any journalist who tries to analyze this, tackle this in a serious way, is threatened or frightened a little bit, he is strongly discouraged from telling his opinion because he will be called Japan basher. So he says, if you seriously analyze, then you are labeled Japan basher. And in his point of view, therefore, there is no serious analyst because it's easy to say, Japan basher. So he said, he doesn't give a name, but he means people like Ishihara or something. Easy to say, my criticism is not true because everyone says, you are just a Japan basher, always criticizing. His opinion.
If not a Japan basher, then as overly critical, one-sided.
So you are called Japan basher, or you are considered unfair, only one-sided.
Yes, only one-sided. そのブランデッドアーツとそれから「If not a Japan basher」ってこれは、そういうこと。で Then as overly critical then as
one-sided. Or as
Yes.
That's been said of your book. Even some sympathetic reviewers have said something like it's unbalanced. I asked, okay, where, what? And I'm still waiting for answers. People don't want to be identified with the analysis I give because it brands them as anti-Japanese. If you are seriously analyzing, it is inevitable that you will be called anti-Japanese.
Even some sympathetic reviewers have said something like it's unbalanced. Okay. How? Where? What?
So he says that even some people who sympathize with his book say it's not fair. And his response is, okay, which part of the book, what part is not fair?
People don't want to be identified with the analysis I give because it brands them as anti-Japanese.
So he says that many people say it's unfair because they don't want to be identified with the same kind of attitude he gives, because then it looks like they're anti-Japanese. Why is there so much name-calling among Japan experts? The term Japan bashing has made discussion almost impossible. You are automatically a Japan basher if your ideas diverge significantly from the officially blessed version. It's been very effective, that term, and it's been systematically used by Japanese officials in the United States, and the press has adopted it. It becomes a reality because the word is so widely accepted. Now I admit there are things you can justifiably call Japan bashing. There are undoubtedly some people in the United States who thoroughly hate Japan.
There are so much name, so
Name calling.
name calling among Japan experts.
Name calling. Name calling. Japan basher.
Japan bashing.
Some name.
The term Japan bashing has made discussion almost impossible. You are automatically a Japan basher if your idea diverges significantly from the officially blessed version.
So he doesn't like this word because, as he said before, if you criticize or if your ideas are quite different from the so-called accepted idea, then you are automatically called Japan basher.
It's been very effective that time. And it's been systematically used by Japanese officials in the United States, and the press has adopted it.
So using that expression has been very effective to stop criticism. And he says it's been used by many Japanese officials in America and by the media.
I admit there are things you can justifiably call Japan bashing.
He says, yes, there are some things that are really Japan bashing. You're implying that debate about Japan is stifled fairly effectively. Why doesn't it become more frank? Some people are moved by laudable motives. Some Americans are genuinely worried that this Japan-U.S. relationship is getting unstuck, and they are correct. I talk all the time to U.S. State Department people who say, all right, you may be right, but think of the effect this is having. I tell them, I agree with you. The rest of the world cannot afford to have a serious deterioration in the U.S.-Japan relationship. But I say, can the current dialogue go on like this?
You are inclined that debate about Japan is stopped fairly effectively. Why doesn't it become more frank?
So the questioner wants to know why the debate doesn't become more open.
Some people are moved by laudable motifs.
Some people have good motives.
Japan-US relationship is getting unstuck to out of control.
Falling apart.
All right, you may be right, but think of the effect this is having. I tell them, I agree with you. The rest of the world cannot afford to have a serious deterioration in the U.S.-Japan relationship.
It may be correct that the relationship is getting unstuck, but he wants to tell American officials that the world, it's bad not just for the U.S. and Japan, but bad for the rest of the world if the relationship worsens. Dramatic. And what do they say? Well, I don't think they've thought that far. And I have the feeling that they are not aware of the enormity of what we're dealing with. This is an important point. On the whole, people outside of Japan are still unaware of its potential power, its political significance, the economic might that translate into political power. Because of economic power, economic measures to correct trade imbalances, for example, do not influence Japan much. The market does not determine what is going to happen here. And now there is a political problem because on the American end you have Congress, which is gradually getting ready to legislate a solution to it. And on the Japan side you have political paralysis.
I have the feeling that they are not aware of the enormity of what we are dealing with.
So he doesn't think that most people understand how important it is.
People outside of Japan are still unaware of its political power.
So in other countries people still don't appreciate how strong Japan is.
The economic might that translates into political power because economic measures to correct trade imbalances.
So people don't understand how powerful Japan is economically or politically. And that's because the economic measures to change these trade problems don't influence Japan very much.
The market does not determine what is going to happen here.
So the economic market here in Japan doesn't determine what will happen in Japan.
Determine.
Decide.
But now there is a political problem because on the American end you have Congress, which is gradually getting ready to legislate a solution to it.
So from the American side, there is Congress, which Bush is getting angrier and getting ready to pass new laws.
And reach to conclusion.
Maybe some restrictions on Japanese products or something, moving that direction. That's why Bush tries to stop that kind of thing, but it is moving closer. Mr. Gebhardt, you know.
Yes. Economic sanction.
Yes, sanction or taxes on Japanese products.
And on the Japanese side, you have a political paralysis.
So on the American side, Congress is moving in their own direction. But on the Japanese side, you have no decisions because the politics here has no central authority to decide. Many groups and nobody will move boldly. Taifu can't decide because he has to worry about Abe, Miyazawa, or so and so. So nothing happens. Paralyzed. So he says it's a dangerous situation. Political paralysis and very emotional political group in America pushing their own way. So the other day, Ace Hoso, Monday, Meet the Press interviewed Mr. Gebhardt about Japan because of Bush Typhoon. Gebhardt is young, he is attractive, very intelligent, very powerful. He tried to run for president 2 years ago, and maybe he'll try again. And one issue is Japan, especially now the Soviet and Eastern countries are not so much the enemy anymore. So
on the enemy is focused on Japan.
Well, easy to see a new threat, not Soviet military, but Japanese economic. And in politics, that can be dangerous, even in Japan. Recently, Shakaito, very interestingly, argues to protect the farmer. Very strange. Before, they never said such thing, because farmer never voted Shakaito. But Mrs. Doi moving that direction. So, very easy to see people.
On the attack, the LDB by consumption tax only. The same people, same nation, the trade program, they have to, his opposite party have to support, have to think about that program together, the more better idea. Have to think more better idea.
Well, that is politics.
So, only
every country is like that way.
全部 all of those programs have to solve 自民党 LDP only. So, Kaif-san, no power.
So, he can't, even if he wants to decide, he can't.
Yes. They have to change our economic system.
I don't know.
It was not so easy to change for a short term. Very difficult. For a long time, stuck that. So, 体質 system. Difficult situation now.
Getting more difficult.
Getting more difficult.
The heat is getting hotter. The words are becoming stronger. I guess changing world situation means that Japan will become more focused in American media
Yes.
than before.
Yes. To the aware.
An average person, I think, not aware, but gradually they start to get image. Seidon Chosa always says about Americans, why do you buy Japanese products? High quality, good quality. They say about a car, Sony, Matsushita, something like that, Toyota. And the same Seidon Chosa, do you think Japan's trade practice is fair? No. Very interesting reaction. Most people say, yes, high quality. But most people also say, not fair. Yes, we buy high quality, but they don't enter high quality American products to Japan. That is a dangerous trend, I think, in thinking. It means they recognize quality, but they also have strong impression of unfair way. It's right or wrong, I don't know, but they think so. So it's reality.
Yes, it's reality.
There is reality and perception reality.
Yes. How do they deal with that reality? It's a turning point.
So some voices are getting stronger. Mr. Ayakoka is complaining again recently. So you changed that.
Replace again.
Of course. Okay. Let's see. Falling asleep. What shall I do? I was just looking and staring. Nice though. Battling crimes against nature. The Exxon indictment spotlights a rapidly growing legal field. When the Exxon Valdez fouled Alaska's waters a year ago, Americans reacted with shock and indignation. Last week it was Exxon's turn to be shocked. U.S. Attorney General Dick Thornburgh announced that the company had been indicted on 5 criminal counts, stemming from the March 1989 oil spill. That action, which reportedly followed the breakdown of a plea bargain that Alaskan officials opposed as too lenient, could cost Exxon $700 million in fines if the company is convicted. Said Thornburgh, we intend to see that the laws are fully and strictly enforced.
5 criminal counts stemming from the March 1989 oil spill.
So there are 5 charges, criminal charges, against Exxon, which are a result of that accident.
That action, which reportedly followed the breakdown of a plea bargain that Alaska officials opposed as too lenient, to cost Exxon $700 million in fines.
So the government's 5 charges against Exxon, which is now coming after some negotiation between Exxon and Alaska's government, or a negotiation between the government and Exxon to settle this case. After those negotiations failed, then the government made criminal charges. But the state of Alaska thought that the negotiations were too generous to Exxon. So they complained. And then the negotiations failed. And now criminal charges against Exxon. Thornburg's tough words seemed to signal that the Bush administration, stung by charges of foot-dragging on the environment, was moving to crack down on major polluters like Exxon. The company pronounced itself disappointed at the indictments and vowed to fight them in court. The prosecution may yet result in a settlement, but no matter what happens, the case will further complicate a gargantuan legal wrangle that already involves more than 150 civil complaints, as well as the separate prosecution of tanker captain Joseph Hazelwood by the state of Alaska.
Thornburg's tough word seemed to signal that the Bush administration was moving to crack down on major polluters like Exxon.
So the tough language used by Mr. Thornburg seemed to give the impression that the government was going to be more strict against companies like Exxon, which pollute the environment.
Stung by charges of foot dragging on the environment. Foot dragging on the environment. Foot dragging ってイデオ？reluctantly,
Yes.
slow.
Moving slowly.
Moving slowly. そうですか。で、stung. Stung.
Stung. Hurt.
そうですか。はい。
Sensitive to.
And bold to fight them in court. この them っていうのは indictment.
違う。Major polluters like Exxon.
あ、そうですか。はい。Major polluters like Exxon. はい。
So, number one packet.
The case will further complicate gargantuan legal wrangle that already involves more than 150 civil complaints, as well as the separate prosecution of tanker captain Jack Hazelwood. Joseph.
New name.
Joseph Hazelwood. Hazelwood. By the state of Alaska.
So this case will make the case will become even more complicated, and it will become a giant legal battle, a major legal battle, which already has more than 150 other charges, civil charges, like a legal suit. And it also includes the prosecution of the captain of the ship for this accident by the state of Alaska. So it could be many, many years before everything is settled. So many legal cases over one accident. Fishermen are suing Exxon. Workers are suing Exxon. The government is suing Exxon. Alaska is suing Exxon. Lawyers will make a lot of money from all of this.
I saw Joseph Hazelwood in court.
The Exxon indictment is only the latest example of a growing legal trend in the U.S. In the past 2 decades, rising concerns over conservation, pollution, and industrial accidents have crystallized into a large body of environmental regulations. Congress and the states have created thousands of new laws governing the environment, says Washington lawyer Ridgway Hall. And in each of the past 4 years, the Justice Department has brought increasing numbers of environmental actions. As a result, the 20,000 attorneys who specialize in environmental law have become some of the most sought-after professionals in the U.S. Business is unbelievable, says Chicago lawyer Richard Cassette. It's the largest explosion of legal work that I've ever seen.
And industrial accidents have crystallized into a large body of environmental regulations.
So in the last 20 years, there is more concern about conservation and pollution and accidents at factories, which have resulted in a large number of new laws or regulations about the environment.
Washington lawyer Ridgway Hall, and in each of the past 4 years, the Justice Department has brought increasing numbers of environmental actions.
So according to this lawyer, the government and the states have created many, many new laws about the environment. And during the last 4 years, each year, the government has made more, taken more cases to court for environmental problems.
So the most sought after professionals in the U.S. most sought after, most to be needed,
most desired.
most desired. The most were adjective, so the sought after adjective.
Uh-oh, grammar.
Yes, so that
My weak point.
the most がプロフェッショナル、most が sought after professionals.
So I think it's like adjective. The most sought after. It's all together.
あ、そうですね。あ、the most sought after professionals. はい、そうですか。
The largest.
あ、yes.
The biggest.
はい。
That was not so difficult. Like the next sentence, the largest explosion. It's, in that case, adjective largest is
Yes.
one word.
Yes.
But in this other case, it's an adjective clause, I think.
あ、そうですね。こう分解したら。
Yes, you were breaking everything into small points.
Very small things. It's the largest explosion of legal work that I've seen.
So it's the largest sudden. He's never seen so much legal work suddenly occur before.
あ、そうですか。はい。
This new field,
はい。
environmental law.
あ、そうですか。はい。
One of the splashiest growth areas has been criminal environmental law. The Justice Department now has 20 full-time lawyers working on such prosecutions, backed up by U.S. attorneys and FBI agents across the nation, plus 50 criminal investigators at the Environmental Protection Agency. In 7 years, the Justice Department's Special Environmental Unit has obtained more than 400 settlements or convictions against individuals and corporations, yielding fines of $26 million and prison sentences totaling 270 years. Among the defendants, Ashland Oil fined $2.25 million last year for the collapse of a storage tank near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that discharged more than 700,000 gallons of diesel fuel into the Monongahela and Ohio rivers. Texaco fined $750,000 in 1988 for failing to conduct important safety tests on a California offshore drilling rig. And Ocean Spray Cranberries fined $400,000 in 1988 for discharging acidic wastewater from its processing plant in Middleborough, Massachusetts.
On the specialist growth areas have been criminal environmental law.
So one of the biggest or most obvious new areas of law is criminal environmental law.
In 7 years, the Justice Department's Special Environmental Unit has obtained more than 400 settlements or convictions against individuals and corporations.
So in the last 7 years, the Justice Department's special group, environmental group, has been successful in getting in 400 cases where they convicted the party or they made the party agree to a settlement out of court against individual people and corporations. And those settlements and convictions totaled $26 million in backing. And also sending people to jail for 270 years.
Totaling 270 years. そこのイールディングっていうのはそのイールディングっていうのは課するという罰金を与える。罰金をセンテンスと。
Yeah, amounting to totaling.
そうですか。はい。Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that discharged more than 700,000 gallons. その discharged っていうのは emitted っていう。
Yes.
で、テクサコっていうのは
Texas Oil Company.
Oil company.
You've never heard Texaco?
No. Sometimes I heard, but none.
Very big one.
Exxon,
You will
like
see
Exxon.
in Kentucky. Everywhere Texaco. Exxon, Shell, Texaco, Standard Oil. Standard is Exxon.
Exxon's building in New York, very big, very nice building.
I guess so. I haven't been to New York for 20 years now.
I dropped in that office one time. For Exxon. I have a map around the New York. Exxon build's office gave map to tourists. In 1988, for failing to conduct important safety tests on California offshore ドリリングリグ
So Texaco was fined $750,000 because they didn't conduct a safety test that they were supposed to perform when they were drilling for oil on the California coast.
あ、そうですか。はい。オーシャンスプレイクランベリーズ。オイルカンパニー
Cranberry.
クランベリー、クランベリーというのはその、あれでしょ、フルーツ。
Yes.
うん、yes。クランベリー、
That's
農産物。
美味しくない cranberry if you have oil. ちょっと危ないでしょ。
アグリカルチャルプロダクト会社。
Well, processing plant.
あ、プロセッシングプラント。
So for cranberries in the shop.
キャンドクランベリーと。
Yes.
あ、はい。そうですね。プロセッシングプラント。
Yes.
マサチューセッツ。
Well, it says so.
Right.
Yes. $400,000 they had to pay
To pay.
because of their
Discharging
mistake.
acid.
Mistake or
アシドウェイストウォーターっていうのは
yes.
酸性廃棄物。排水。
Oh, I guess I've never heard it Japanese before.
I had many
okay.
recently.
So,
Recently.
on TV or something.
Yes.
Although the upsurge of prosecutions has naturally created a demand for top environmental defense attorneys, the biggest draw of all is corporate work. Gone are the days when environmental law was the lone province of conservationist lobby groups and government agencies. Today's environmental lawyer is more likely to wear a pinstripe suit and dispense advice across the company conference table. The reason is simple, says Howard Lerner of Business and Professional People for the Public Interest. If you're in a real estate transaction, you want to know what's buried beneath the land and what's in the water supply. Preventive action, in short, has become the main focus of this growing branch of legal practice.
Although the upsurge of prosecutions has naturally created a demand for top environmental defense attorneys, the biggest draw of all is corporate work.
So even though the new or the increase of these prosecutions has made top very good defense lawyers in demand. The best job of all for this kind of lawyer is being a corporate lawyer.
Corporate lawyer.
Yes, corporation lawyer.
そうですか。
The lawyer from Matsushita, or the lawyer
そうですか。
that is still best job.
そうですね。Gone are the days.
No longer.
世論が
So the days of nani nani are gone,
そうですね。
have passed.
Past.
It's history.
The days are gone.
The days of environmental law as the area, only the area of conservationist lobby groups and government agencies, those days are gone. Now many more lawyers are involved. It used to be a very narrow field.
その We are a pinstripe suit. What does it mean?
Pinstripes.
ただ、just それだけ。なんかいい。
So when somebody wears a pinstripe suit, what's your image of them?
イメージ。
You have to think, yeah, but what's your immediate image of the person who wears pinstripe suit?
Please teach me. I
Yeah,
feel.
teach you.
I feel very conservative person.
So.
Feel.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Always I doubt my feeling.
Yeah, I don't think so. You're conservative.
そうですか。And dispense advice across the company conference table.
So today's lawyer is probably a very conservative, high-class corporate lawyer. So corporate lawyers probably wear pinstripe suits because they're dealing with big companies, so conservative. Setsumekai yesterday, I wore a pinstripe suit.
Yes.
Slightly,
Nice.
slightly conservative.
You are very good, nice looking.
Because at that meeting, the show, first impression of students is important.
Yes.
So I didn't wear an earring in my ear or something.
Very nice impression.
Yeah, we have one teacher who has an earring. Small earring. Yes.
Teacher?
Yes.
Woman, not
Coming
woman.
from Tokyo to Kobe school. Mr. Yanagi didn't meet him yet.
One year,
sure.
only 1 year?
Only one ear. Very small earring. At first I didn't see. Second, it doesn't bother me. It's okay. I'm sure though Mr. Yanagi will have some idea.
Man's style, man's fashion っていうのは one year only.
Recently.
ね。そうですね。
Many men in Australia.
Yes.
I was surprised.
Only one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Usually small.
そうですね。He is very fashionable. Another clothes or manner or
He's very casual.
casual.
He's a nice guy. It doesn't bother me. But I know some people will think something. Their first impression, and after they know him, they will like him.
Yes.
But the first impression is. In Setsumekai, they have no chance to know me. So
Yes.
only the impression is important at
Yes.
first.
Yes.
The only time they will know me is if they come and they join the school and they become my student. Then they will know.
Yes.
But
First.
if the impression is not good in Setsumekai, they won't come. So I can't dress like this in Setsumekai. I want to.
Very nice. You are very nice.
Blue jeans. So, anyways, these lawyers are conservative, and they sit at the conference table of the corporation, giving advice to the client. If
you are in a real estate transaction, you want to know what's buried beneath the land and what's in the water supply.
So corporations now have to worry about environment. So for instance, if you want to buy real estate, it's not just the land, but you have to know now what's beneath the land and what's the water like. So, because if you cause some problem, you may have a serious legal problem later.
Beneath the land, maybe some chemical matter.
So, yes. Or you destroy water supply for other people and they complain. So corporations have to hire big lawyers to protect them, this kind of thing. Preventative action. Become the main focus of this growing branch of legal practice. Prevent something before it happens.
Yes.
A very good business for these lawyers.
On other days, nothing, not so many happens. That problem recently increased, become increasingly.
Yes.
Increasing.
More and more. More than any other single factor, it is the Federal Superfund Act that gave environmental law its impetus. Some have suggested that the statute was the Public Works Act of the 1980s for lawyers. Says Tulane University professor Robert Kuhn. Complex legislation, which created a trust fund in the billions to treat hazardous waste sites, mandates that polluters should be held responsible for the cost of cleaning up. What keeps Superfund lawyers busy is the effort to determine exactly who should be found liable. For example, should it be the firm that discharged the waste, the current property owner, the banks that hold the mortgage, or the insurers?
Was there any other similar factor? It is the Federal Superfund Act that give environmental law its impetus.
So this Superfund Act is a law passed a few years ago, which is the most responsible for influencing a new field of environmental law.
そうですか。はい。Some have suggested that the statute was the Public Works Act of the 1980s for lawyers.
So some people think that this law was a kind of law of the 80s for lawyers, like public works. Some people think this law created many new jobs for lawyers.
そうですか。Which created the trust fund in the billion to treat hazardous waste sites.
So the Superfund law was very complex, and it created a multi-billion-dollar trust fund, which is intended to treat or deal with waste locations of hazardous chemicals. And also the law and the trust fund demands that polluters are held responsible for cleaning up their own pollution.
そうですか。The mandate では demand.
Yes.
What keeps
Requires.
required. はい。What keeps Superfund lawyers busy is the effort to determine exactly who should be found liable.
So the thing that keeps these lawyers very busy is determining exactly who is responsible for these problems.
For example, should it be the firm that discharged the waste, the current property owner, the banks that hold the mortgage, or the insurance?
Yes. So it's difficult to decide who is most at fault. An example, when you have a problem, is it the firm that discharges the toxic waste who's responsible? Or is it the owner of the property? Or is it the bank that loans the money to the corporation? Or is it the insurance company, which protects the company? each of these groups get their own lawyers, and each of them are trying to avoid responsibility. So maybe pointing in the direction of another person, and the court has to decide. It's all very good business for environmental lawyers.
Very important job. Recently become more and more.
Typical American style. Responsibility. Avoid or yes. We usually find one most responsible or something. Proceedings under traditional statutes like the Clean Water Act also keep lawyers occupied. So does the heavy lobbying surrounding the new legislation. Last week, Senate leaders announced a delicate compromise on a Clean Air Act to regulate car and factory emissions, but the measure will face tough going on the floor.
Clean Water Act also keep lawyers occupied. Lawyers have to try harder to that solution.
No, not try harder, but other laws like this new law will keep environmental lawyers very busy.
そうですか。occupied very busy. はい。So does the heavy lobbying surrounding new legislation.
So also keeping lawyers busy will be the huge amount of lobbying which is going on now about proposed legislation, about new laws.
そうですか。A new Clean Air Act to regulate car and factory emissions, but the measure will face tough going on the floor.
So last week, Senate leaders announced they had a compromise, a very sensitive compromise, about a new law for clean air, which will regulate the car and the factory emissions of automobiles. But this law is going to face a tough battle in the Congress. There's no guarantee it will pass. So it's a very sensitive, delicate compromise. It means that there is a heavy opposition. And maybe it's very close. Probably lobbying by lawyers for car companies are against that, and oil companies. But on the other side, many conservationist groups. So the senators they get contributions to show from big companies for a campaign, but also they're afraid of what people will think. Typical. Legal business also flows from the environmental impact statements that are now necessary for virtually any major construction. Meanwhile, good old-fashioned conservationist causes, like saving trees and endangered animals, continue to spark hot legal disputes, says Michael Anderson, an attorney for the Wilderness Society. There has never been a time when legal action has been used more effectively than now. That may be good news for those seeking to put the law on the side of the environment. But it is even better news for those lawyers who are making big money from the booming trade.
Legal business also flowed from the environmental impact impact statements that are now necessary for virtually any major construction.
So anytime you have to build anything, any new major construction, you also have to prepare what we call environmental impact statement, environmental impact research
そうですか。
before the construction.
はい。
And though that research or those statement also creates new business for environmental lawyers.
あ、そうですか。はい。There has never been a time when legal action has been used more effectively than now.
So according to this man,
はい。
legal action is more effective now than any time in history
あ、そうですか。はい。
for environmental law.
あ、そうですか。はい。 The lawyers make big money from that lawsuit.
Some lawyers.
で、バイオレーションっていうのはオフェンシブっていうことですか。
To violate.
あ、そうですか。それで、リフユーズアクトって。
Refuge. Waste.
Refuge, waste.
Refuse, no.
そうですね。Yes. Refuge, waste act. はい、あ、そうですね。
Waste.
はい、waste。それで渡り鳥っていうのはそれなんていうんですか。what is the pronunciation? The なんとかバード。
Migratory bird treaty.
あ、そうですか。
Migration. Migrating birds.
あ、そうですか。マイグレーション。
We have many laws that. In Japan.
Compared to America, we have a few.
Maybe. Environment is a big issue these days.
あ、yes. そうですね。followed Japan followed that issue.
Again.
Yes.
So just watching ABC News or CNN, we often see environmental stories.
Yes.
On ASA also.
Yes.
Very often.
Very often.
It means people are getting. And
Conscious.
Seiron Chosa shows economy and environment are top issues these days in domestic politics. People are getting tired of destroying land or water,
Yes.
birds.
Yes.
Exxon became very unpopular.
Yes.
Still making money, but many people are angry at Exxon.
Yes. But animal みんなwhole body oily. Feel sympathy that little birds.
Yes. Around Seattle, oil tanker cannot enter the harbor,
Cannot enter the harbor.
Puget Sound. They have to stay off the coast.
Very beautiful.
Well, people got angry a few years ago, and the big companies tried to push to bring the oil from Alaska to Seattle, and then transport by truck or something, or railway. But the people around Seattle had election. No. No oil tanker in the harbor.
そうですか。
That was a big issue. So some course, oil companies complain about that kind of thing. It makes oil more expensive, they say.
So oil tanker, their cargo, their oil, also when they want to land that cargo, very cost become high, very expensive. Washington is Emerald State.
The Evergreen State.
Evergreen
Seattle
State.
is the Emerald City.
Emerald
Day.
State, yes.
Nickname.
Very beautiful. Emerald. Very clean.
Green.
The ports and waterways act. Waterways って言いますもん。
Waterways.
Waterways. そしたらトレイルっていうかShip's way. Ship's way.
Just to some
Just.
lake, river,
そうですか。はい。
canal.
そうですか。Thank you. Thank you very much.
I should be a lawyer. Change your job.
Specialized in environmental
You did it. Pay the money.
そうですね。
Good idea.
本当に。Good idea.
Should try.
Company's lawyer.
If it's possible.
Yes.
I want to. Pinstripe lawyer.
でも used to you just once you think about lawyer, no.
My
Not at
my
all.
parents often said, "Please go to law school."
でしょうね。I think so.
I said no. But they always said,
でしょうね。
because I like to argue. My mother said, "You're like a lawyer. You always say the opposite opinion.
そんなこと。
Even if you agree with somebody, your nature, you say opposite."
そんなことある。
So that's what she said. So you're like lawyer. They easily say what they don't believe. They have to for their job. What they believe and what they say may be not the same.
So, yes, I think so, but
But I refused. Too tired.
environmental lawyer who works environmental is better than